Loktargar, friends. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another Orc Mode workout. And today is Dynamic Effort Squat and Deadlift Day. I did stuff slightly different today because I did so many sets of speed pulls. I decided I didn't need the hip belt squats today. I'll definitely do them on Mondays, and this Monday coming around, again, I'll do them again. I'm just worried about my quads being able to take the total amount of workload because I ended up doing 20 singles on the speed squats. And you have to factor in, I do train my legs twice a week. And I went a hair lower. Like I pulled that pad out so that I'm literally on a 12-inch box now. So I am going even deeper. I'm going pretty deep on these box squats. And I'm trying to just learn to get more and more explosive out of the bottom on those. Because again, making sure my hips are strong. Because again, that's what's really going to make sure that I stay strong out of the bottom on a normal back squat. So there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, since I'm using all this accommodating resistance to make things harder at the top and to change my deceleration curves, it's not a big deal if I go a hair deeper, right? Just like I've been doing for the max effort stuff with all the chains and stuff, now I'm doing deficit sumo deadlifts so that I train those deeper hip angles, right? Because we need our hips to be strong. Right? We need our hips to be strong. We need everything to be strong, really. I mean, if we want to be strong at a squat and a deadlift, you can't have weak links. You can't. And that's what I try to tell people. That's one of the reasons that stuff like powerlifting is a legitimate test of absolute strength. It is a legitimate test of it. It's the best test that we currently have out of any strength sport. Because you can't be weak anywhere other than maybe your biceps. And hell, now that they've thrown, some feds are throwing in the strict curl as a optional lift. That kind of resolves that, doesn't it? Not that I can really seem to do strict curls without problems with my bicep tendons, but you guys get the idea. Now that that's been thrown in, if that was standardized, you'd have to be strong at everything, because that's the only muscle that is not tested. I mean, everything, your hips, if your hips are weak, if your hamstrings are weak or anything else, you suck at powerlifting. You suck at it. So everything's going good though with this. I mean, I'm still getting used to running this much accommodation as far as the contrast weight top to bottom, because I mean, I've got 100 pounds of chains on there right now. And I'm going a hair deeper, and that's fine. We're going to adapt to that. We're going to get used to it. Right? We need to learn to get deep on these, because this depth is what's going to matter when I carry over to a normal back squat. And I've got to get used to that wider stance. And I'm struggling to really get my feet out as wide as I'd like on these. I'm slowly working on it and trying to learn to turn those knees out. And that's going to be important, because that's where you get your drive through. That's where you get that speed from, because you're getting that extra hip, getting that extra glute, all that stuff to get you firing out of the hole. And again, that carries over tremendously. But the other upside, since I'm doing all this with straight up high bar, right? I'm doing high bar. I'm focusing on squeezing everything, pulling everything in tight, using the wrist wraps now. I think that thoracic rounding is pretty much going away, and we're going to keep working on that. We're going to keep working on that, because once that thoracic rounding is gone, and I build up my abductors and everything and get used to this wider stance, my squat's going to excel. Like what you guys saw me hit last year when I was doing Bulgaria and hitting the 485 every day. That's really not anywhere near where my limit's going to be. Not going to be even close. You guys saw there, my quads have definitely been slowly coming up. Since I'm doing the sumo deadlifting, all the sumo deadlifting, doing the hip belt squats, my quads are coming back. And a couple things that I think is amusing. Let's talk about some of the criticisms people have. Number one, people are talking about fake weights. I'm not even going to entertain that, guys. I have invested $7,000 of my own, out of my own pocket, to have calibrated plates and all this expensive equipment. At this point, anyone who literally makes an accusation of fake weights is so much of a moron that you can't even take them seriously. Like, in fact, I go so far as to say, if that's their criticism of me on their list, then we can ignore everything they say. Like that makes them basically an ignorant detractor, and we can literally ignore everything else they say because they're just making up shit. There are legitimate criticisms of me that if people stuck to would actually make them sound better. And I don't want to give my detractors tips, but realistically, anyone who's talking about fake weights at this point, given that I have calibrated plates and have invested all this money, everyone with any common sense knows they're full of shit. So it basically ruins any of their arguments against me, which is ironic because if they drop some of the stupid stuff, there could actually be real criticism against me. There really could be, because no one's perfect. I have flaws like every other person, but that ain't one of them. Okay, over to these speed pulls. I think I pretty well got the chain set to where I figured out kind of where to hook my chains to sumo deadlift and pretty much get all the chain off the floor. I just now looked. The whole chain's coming off the floor. So we're good to go there. I think I got that figured out. In fact, I could probably uncoil a little bit more of those. Those curious, that's 120 pounds of chain. Pretty much all the chain I have, unless I want to throw my little smaller. I've got some little 5-pounders on, but I think at this point that doesn't matter. I think 120 pounds of chain is good for now. If I want to get more accommodation there, I'll just get more chains. Or I could always run some lead chains there and actually let those hang a little bit lower. Now that I'm looking at it, I could probably do that. I might mess with that later in the future too, so that we get that to where the chains are just barely off the floor, and then I'm not dealing with that extra at the top. But I also went a hair heavier than my predicted percentages for my maxes because of that, and that's fine. This is just speed work. But here's what I ended up doing. This felt good. My thumbs were a little bit tender from the hook grip on it, but I feel like my grip is improving. Right? I've been adding pinch blocks on my deadlift days. I'm now rowing every workout and really focusing on squeezing the hell out of that bar on the rows. My thumbs are adapting to the hook grip. My grip is coming up. If we keep that grip strong and we keep that hip mobility up, I think these sumo deadlifts are going to climb. But on Monday, I was super happy with my squats, and then deadlifting, I didn't feel like I had anything left. So I'm like, let me focus more on the deadlifting on dynamic effort day, because that's where I feel weakest right now, right? Squatting is coming along great. Squatting's coming along great. Let me focus on these deadlifts. And that's what I did. So normally people need to remember the speed pull days is 10 to 20 sets. It's not just 10. It's 10 to 20. 10 is your baseline. I went ahead and ran it out to 20. Now, by the end of this 20, my thumbs were getting pretty sore. Thumbs are getting pretty sore, but I managed to do 20 because my grip is coming along. My grip is developing again really nicely, and we're going to keep it developing because as long as my grip is strong, and again, I can get my hip mobility where it needs to be, my posterior chain stays strong, these sumo deadlifts are going to climb. Sumo deadlifts are going to climb. And this carries over to my squat, and that's the beauty of it. These are accessories for each other. The box squatting helps sumo deadlifting helps box squatting. That's the reason we do these two things in conjunction on this style of periodization, because they flow into each other. And then the hip belt squat's just an all-around hypertrophy exercise for both that helps you squat into that deep position. But today I felt like I wanted to go ahead and run this out to 20 sets. And this is literally like half my workout. Like half this footage, you guys are just going to watch me pull over and over and over, just speed pull. And they felt good, and I'm not fatigued. Right? This is one of those to where after all the speed work, I feel really good. I don't really feel fatigued. I feel refreshed. And that's a good situation to be in when you're training. Right? That's a real good situation to be in. I think maybe one of these somewhere after the 10 mark, though, my thumbs slipped a little bit and it felt awkward, and I didn't really hold it at the top because I didn't set my hook right. But 19 out of 20 getting that hook set right, I'm just getting into that groove. And that's the other beauty of it. When you do really, really high sets of the speed pulls, you practice whatever grip setup you're doing. And in my case, it's setting that hook over and over and over and over, getting that practice in. We're getting in that practice. I am noticing it's like, man, I am definitely slowly losing body fat. Now, people will look at that and say, oh, you're so fat. But it's like, guys, I'm not a bodybuilder. But I think we're going to get to a point, if you guys look at just what I've done versus a few months ago, look at where I was at a few months ago versus even now. I've lost a couple pounds of body fat, and I'm not cutting. I'm staying at maintenance. So, I mean, the recomp is happening. It's not going to be fast, guys, but that's okay. Because I don't feel restricted. I feel like my diet is doable. It feels like it's something I can sustain long term. And I have been doing it long term, like pretty much this entire year what I'm doing. The training is improving. So at a certain point, I mean, people have got to remember, at a certain point, look at what I've done in, say, the last 5 months. What happens if I replicate that again by the end of the year? What if I replicate that same 5 months again? I mean, even the people who hate me are going to quit calling me fat at that point, right? If I recomp and strength gain as much over the next 5 months as I've done in the last 5 months, I mean, at a certain point, the detracting of that's just going to be ridiculous. Or to even say, oh, Jason's lazy, Jason doesn't follow his diet. Like at a certain threshold, realistically, people have to just quit saying that. And eventually we'll get to that point. But I'm not going to be in a hurry. And that's always the thing. I always get people who tell me and advise me, why don't you just do a little course of DNP and just get lean real quick to shut haters up? Because it's like, because quick fixes don't shut haters up. Quick fixes, when the haters see it, will just say he did a quick fix and did a bunch of drugs. And you know what? That's a valid criticism, isn't it? Right? If I did that crap and all the people who want to talk crap about me, make videos about it, call me out on it, are they going to be right? Yeah. So what if I just do it slowly day after day with really hard work and just keeping my diet on point, eating quality foods, keeping my diet on point, recompositioning, focusing on training hard, keeping my programming dialed in, and just spend a year doing what people think I should do in a month? Can anybody really hate on that without looking stupid? No. Of course not. They can't. Because it'd be like, oh, yeah, the guy worked really hard for a long time and did it. Oh, what a loser. He's so lazy. Right? That doesn't work. And at a certain point, I think even people who hate you sometimes, if you actually come in and put in the work to prove a hater wrong, on occasion, I'm not saying this always happens, sometimes you even gain their respect when they say, you know what, I criticized the guy, and maybe he took my criticism on board and he did what I said he wasn't capable of doing. You know? Now, maybe that's wishful thinking on my part, but who knows? Who cares? At a certain point, I'm just going to keep moving forward with it. After that, 5x5 chest supported rows. I bumped the weight on these a hair. Yes, it felt heavier. Yes, it was harder, but I focused on squeezing the bar super hard. I do need to progress on these, although this is about as much weight as I can handle. I'm pretty much at my limit. These are limit sets with this weight. And I adjusted my grip a couple times back and forth in terms of width. Felt like this was a little narrow at first, so I think I brought it out a hair. But again, this is my bench accessory. This helps bring my back up. And by doing this every workout, it gives me 20 sets of these rows. These are easy to recover from. They are super easy to recover from because there's no axial loading. But because of the nature of it, I have to pull from a dead stop, so it trains speed strength. It trains my scapular retraction that I need for my bench. It trains my lats, my rear delts, my grip. Because I'm squeezing it as hard as possible, this is extra grip training. So this fits in nice. Like this is really turning into a primary assistance movement for me, or accessory movement really. Right? It's a primary accessory movement because it trains so many things that I need, and I can just run it out to 20 sets a week. And it's easy to set up, easy to do, easy to recover from. So for now, it's going to be a mainstay in my training. This is probably going to be my highest volume assistance movement every week. And as a strength athlete, it's for good reason. So got one more set to go, and it's been a good workout. Like I said, because of all the quad volume I did, I went ahead and skipped on the hip belt squats. We'll do them on Monday. And I'm going to do some glute ham raise work later and call it a day. So I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.